We are truly honored to have the Finance Minister here, and we are especially honored this year because I think this has been a milestone year for the Indian economy and also for the Finance Minister personally. We had the income tax changes in the budget. We had the new income tax law. She's the chairperson of the GST Council, which pushed through the rate rationalization. So it's been a year of big bang reforms. So I'm going to start with the obvious question, which is what next? Because you've done a lot of things that people have been speaking of for a long time, right? I mean, for the last 20 years, all of us have been writing about the need for a new direct tax code, and effectively that's what you've got now. There's been talk since 2017 of the need to rationalize GST, and that's what you've done again. So what next? What are the, or to just add to that, will the next set of reforms be big bang? And by big bang, I mean things like bank privatization, which a lot of investors are excited about, or will it be much more incremental in terms of ease of doing business? It's on.
So good morning and happy to be here in the HT Leadership Summit. There are quite a few things to do, but what's on the card, and it's not a secret that I'm letting out before the budget, but is the complete overhaul of the customs area. We need to have customs a lot more simplified for people to, feel that it is not too tiresome, cumbersome for them to comply with the expectations and the rules, to make it more transparent. And we are normally in some sort of a alignment with the World Customs Organization. So every standard that they peg for us and for the world, we normally comply and keep to that benchmark. But even with that said, I think in the execution, if I can just go back to the Income Tax Act for a minute, the commentary used to be that income tax rates are not the problem. Yes, we want lower and lower and lower rates, but it is the tax administration which causes the problem. It's the tax administration which becomes painful, sometimes agonizing, and therefore the not so nice coinage resulted in tax terrorism. So we have really worked on that and made sure that the income tax is no longer going to be seen as a tiresome exercise, simplify it, and also where it is possible to completely be faceless in letter and spirit, we have moved forward in that direction. Now the same virtues will have to be brought to customs, transparency, but at the same time, the risk of illicit contraband goods coming is still serious a problem. But can we then do a scanning of everything? Can we then keep the person away from it, the customs officials from it, so that there is no discretion? So we are looking at it in that sort of way comprehensively, other than the fact that we have brought down customs duties over the last 2 years steadily, but in those few items where we are still considered to be over the optimal rate, we will have to bring them down as well. So customs is my next big cleaning up assignment, if I can say that. Whether that will be categorized as big bang or not is for the media.
It would definitely be big bang. You already have the record for presenting the maximum number of consecutive budgets, and although I know you don't keep track of these records, and you will better it next year. 2019 to 2025, and next year will be 2026. It's been an eventful journey for the economy. I mean, we've seen the pandemic, we've seen the supply chain disruptions that were caused by geopolitical conflicts, and now we've seen the headwinds caused by tariffs. So there have been domestic factors, there have also been global factors. How do you look back on this journey? One, for the economy, and two, for yourself personally as the person in charge of this economy.
Well, for the economy, I'm sure the assessment from your end would be the same. We thought COVID was the biggest challenge. We thought we had to overcome that, and after that, growth will be the biggest challenge. Soon after that, the war, which was far away from us, but we thought that was the challenge because food grains, fertilizers were all at risk because the value chains and the supply chains were completely disrupted. Then we moved on to speaking about India now having to make up for the deficiencies in terms of governance. So we had to get over that in order that we speed up growth and also keep the growth sustainable. Then, of course, we had the election, which took away major part of our capital expenditure. So each year, the reason why I'm listing it out is to just remind ourselves that Indian economy has gone through some of the biggest, I mean, Sukumar might say in a sequence you presented so many budgets, but equally when I bring my personal assessment into this, equally the Indian economy probably has not seen a sequence of challenge uninterrupted, most of which were coming from outside. So with all that happening, then 1 year of election, but we've had our trouble with our borders, which has always been both through the state actors and non-state actors. This time you saw what happened, particularly at a time when J&K was coming around, the economy was picking up, and economy under the central rule, much before the elected government came in, we had actually gone into the granular details of looking at the J&K economy, removing the undergrowth and really pushing it up so that it becomes buoyant. The restoration of J&K Bank's health is something which the country can be proud of, the way in which the J&K economy revived. And obviously, when you have a country which is targeting our, stable government, stability, the growth in our economy, you had a major hit. I must appreciate the Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, who of course has met me twice, in wanting and being focused to restore the economy back after the tourism severe hit on tourism, and it came to a standstill. Tourism came to a standstill. So the reason why I'm highlighting is when you think you have brought in some kind of an order and you're restoring the economy, there are challenges which come. And every challenge is, of course, unexpected. Earlier, I would be confident to say there are challenges within the country which probably we'll be able to handle. And I still am hopeful that we can handle domestic problems. But the global uncertainties are actually taking a big toll, not just on Indian economy or its plan for the next 10 years, Vikasit Bharat, but globally, the world is in a turmoil. And we have to keep our heads high for the stable leadership Honorable Prime Minister provides, and the stable policies which he is constantly insisting on, based on which our economy can be strong, our investments can be high. And of course, I would lose no opportunity to praise the Indian retail investors who have done brilliantly well in understanding the market and coming in with a bit of a risk element on board, still coming in, and not just being safe by keeping their monies in post offices or banks fixed deposit. So Indian economy itself is going through very many different big time changes. We're all part and parcel of those big time changes. The macro picture is still not before us, I would think, or if it is before us, it is still a bit hazy. But the fact remains that each one of us are playing a role in this huge big shift which is happening in India.
Your government has had two fiscal leaps of faith this year, one with the income tax and the other one with the rationalization in GST rates. And we've just had the GDP numbers also come in. Do you think their impact has been on expected lines? Because I think the larger assumption behind these changes was that with people having more discretionary income in their wallets, they would go out and spend. What does your assessment show?
Well, on the income tax, it is only from 1st October, 1st April, 1st April this year. And the assessment of that will come only in the next year in terms of tax collection. But in terms of spending, we are seeing it already. And the GST changes, because it's across the board, it wouldn't do me any comfort if I just look at automobile sector and say, oh great, look at the increase in purchases. But I have to see other sectors as well. And when I'm talking about other sectors, they will have to be assessed over a slightly medium term rather than quickly 1 month's purchase, because that month happened to be a festival month. So both of them, therefore, income tax for the assessment side and for GST because of the festival month time, I will have to see how it plays out in the medium term. My expectation is when prices can come down, it's pure theory that people do buy more, spending goes up. Only when your tax rates reach a certain level beyond sustainable level, it plateaus out, demand plateaus out, the Laffer curve principle. So I would think both these will have a bearing, and it will be for all of us to see it from the coming few months. As it is, we saw the growth numbers for the second quarter. I think that will sustain, and overall this year's growth numbers will be 7 or beyond it as well.
I think we are also at a stage where the real growth numbers are very, very heartening. But there is some concern over the nominal growth numbers, also because your tax revenue is linked to the nominal growth numbers. Does that worry you?
Well, it's also a truth that we want our inflation to be down. Your deflator is now, where it can reach the bottommost. If anything, it has to rise a bit for stimulating growth. So we'll have to see. But it doesn't worry me. I think the factors are playing out and they will find their own level. And so is before you ask me, so is the answer for rupee versus the dollar.
No, I was just going to come to that.
Rupee will have to find its own.
No, I know that sitting in your chair, you probably can't say this, but a little inflation won't hurt, right? I mean...
True, because for growth you need that little
bit of boost. One of the concerns, because we've been speaking about consumption, one of the concerns is that the middle class especially, and of course Indians have a very broad definition of middle class. I think everyone in this room would call themselves middle class when no one really is. One of the concerns is that when the middle class is consuming more, there are fears that they're saving less. And lower savings has its own impact on the economy. Does this worry you, or do you think it's all right?
I was going through this number, savings growth, and also started looking at where savings actually is going in terms of where the savings are getting parked. Growing all right, but not as much when you look at purely the savings, the small savings which go to banks or to the post offices. But if you were to look at monies which are going through the retail investors into the market, into the mutual funds, you see savings is also investment today. And therefore, if you look at the sum total of all these various categories, savings is not going down. And equally, whether through some kind of a bank assistance or credit taken from bank, I think the assets are also growing up. It's actually increasing in the hands of the middle class. So they may have loans to repay, but their total assets are also going up in terms of the number of people who have taken home loans or number of people who are paying, EMIs for additional rooms being built in their house. So when you look at the way in which assets are improving or the buying of second houses, people who seek tax exemption for the second one, which is not given out on rent but is kept under ownership. We have not made a differentiation. A second house is also not being taxed, whether you let it on rent or it's your own, under your own possession. So, savings today is finding various different ways of being parked and earning some interest out of it. So I don't think we should narrow the debate down to only look at what is going into the post offices or
Thanks.
public sector banks in terms of savings in fixed deposits.
Your budgets have consistently been very, very strong on the fiscal consolidation front. But we are seeing a worrying trend in states. Populist spending is going up, and freebies have now become a way of life. And I personally believe that we have to make a distinction between freebies and welfare, but because welfare is necessary, freebies are, it's just an incentive to vote for a particular party. Where will this stop? I mean, is this something that you've discussed with your fellow finance ministers in the GST Council?
Not so much in the GST Council, but when they meet me one on one, we have been talking about it. I'm so much concerned about it, not because they're giving freebies, but because their budget cannot afford it. I'm more looking at it from the point of view of they borrow, some of them borrow to do this, or borrow for something, but this continues to be heavy baggage which pulls them down in terms of they not being in a position to service the high cost loans which have been taken a few years back. So I've been, well, I don't want to say counseling them, I don't want to say advising them. I've been having conversations to make sure that if they need some help from the center, not in terms of money, but in terms of sitting and sharing some thoughts on how to restructure their debt. If the central, Ministry of Expenditure, Ministry of Economic Affairs can sit together, the budget division can sit together with these officials from the states, we are trying to suggest that they may look into restructuring their loans, even if it means that they have to pay back some of those very expensive loans taken earlier with some penalty. They should do it because they are just not able to, some of the states are not able to service their loans. And borrowing to service the loan is very bad quality borrowing. And therefore, there's a lot of things happening on this. I'm talking with the states more as a, friend to a minister rather than as a Finance Minister Government of India talking to the Finance Minister State Government. I don't want that relationship at all. I'd rather talk to them and say, if there is a help you want me to do, I'll do it. And some states, I'm not naming them, across the board, no party lines here, some states have actually shown keen interest and benefited from it. Actually benefited after having had their loans restructured. So I think it's time for all of us to keep reminding our states and the center, please do keep reminding me also, that we need to have a focus in reducing the borrowing. It cannot be that you keep doing both revenue and somewhat some capital expenditure with the borrowed money. Because intergenerational burden is, I think, not right. I don't want to get into the ethics of it or the moral of it, but it's just not right. You can leave some borrowing. No state can run or no government can run without zero borrowing, with zero borrowing.
But have freebies become a political compulsion? I mean, because every party, I think, feels pressured to do it.
Well, politics is competitive.
Okay. I want to come back to the rupee because there are multiple dimensions to this story. One is, of course, the economic dimension, which is so when a currency weakens naturally, right? And I would like to look at all the macro factors that are happening and all that, and you have to look at it economically and assess whether it's worrisome or not. But there is also a very strong you could say it's erroneous, but there's also a very strong nationalist and political aspect to the currency. Every time the currency weakens, people feel, oh my God, India has become weaker. Every time the currency weakens, parties, the opposition parties can raise the issue. Of course, it's another matter entirely that when you were in the opposition, all of you raised it so much better than the current opposition is doing. The rupee, you said it will find its natural level, but don't you think at the level that it's at right now, it's a little high, isn't it?
Sukhma, I'm quite tempted to say a lot of things on this.
You should just feel free.
But no, rupee, currency, exchange rates are all rather too sensitive. I'm not escaping your comment that, oh, when you were in the opposition, you did. Yes, when we were in the opposition, we did. And I'm glad you recognize that we did it much better, because the situation at that time in the economy was so absolutely pathetic. Your inflation rate was so high, particularly the core inflation was so high, the economy was fragile, and when your currency also takes a hit, it is nobody's bright spark that you will comment on the exchange rate. Every one of us did, and we did it definitely, and every session of the parliament we did it, and those of us who were not in the parliament then were saying it outside as well. I'm not saying the situation on the currency debate can be different. It can be the same even now, but look at the fundamentals of the economy. Look at where Indian economy stands. Look at the growth. Look at where we are pitched now, from fourth to the third sooner. So there are some factors which are very important factors, which position India in a different ledge, and as a result of which I think this currency debate will have to be circumscribed by those realities, rather than compare it black and white with the situation then and say, that time you criticized, now you tell me, now I'll tell you more about the economy before I tell you about the currency. So there are, I think, facts which have to play the fundamental for a debate. Now for the exchange rate, obviously, when your currency the value comes down, you think the natural argument would be, oh, for our exporters, it will be brilliant, they should capitalize on it. And I'm sure our exporters have started to benefit from it. I'm not saying, therefore, it satisfies me. But the fact also, some of the observers have said, by coincidence, and I'm not saying this is planned at all, let me underline this. By coincidence, some people observe that at a time when you had this tariff coming on you, this seems to be some respite. Doesn't convince me again. Even if it is true, I'm not going to be satisfied with that. But it is true that economy's strength will have to be, as they say in Parliament, read along with it. Section so and so read along with that. Please read this with that.
Got it. We are out of time. Thank you very much, Finance Minister. I know you're extremely busy, and this is a very short Parliament session with
But very many bills.
lots of substance in it. Thank you once again. And given everything that she's done this year, and also because she saw us safely through the pandemic, could we please have a round of applause for the Finance Minister?
Madam Minister, for being with us and sharing your invaluable insights.